Figured we could talk about Lager Dam today. I'm trying to cover a video for each one of our beers, and I have a lot of catching up to do. I'm going to talk Lager Dam number 14 because it's going to go away for a little bit. I'll talk about that in a minute. First, I want to talk about this beer's history, what it's all about, give it its moment to shine. This one has quite a story. Lager Dam actually started its life many years ago when I was homebrewing. My wife and I would throw a big St. Patrick's Day party every year. We did that for well over a decade, and I would brew the beers for it. And so I would always do Steel Beam, which I'll talk about at some point, I'm sure. I would do an Irish Red, and then I would do this blonde beer, kind of inspired by Harp Lager, and also kind of inspired by Rogue Brewing out of Oregon had a Irish beer that was one of my wife's all-time favorite beers. And so I looked into how to make these beers, and they're really pretty traditional German lagers, more or less. So over the years, I would tweak that recipe and do different versions of it. I think I was just calling it Irish lager back then. It didn't have a clever name. Um, then shortly before we opened at Twin Span, I was thinking about what beers we could offer, and so many breweries offer a blonde ale as their entry beer, as their beer for the Bud Light drinkers out there and the other light beer drinkers who aren't quite getting into craft yet. Uh, so I wanted something different, and around that time, I really was getting into the local brewing history, and so what I ended up making was this beer that took the one I had been tweaking over the years and gave it some pre-prohibition elements, kind of looking at some of the bigger, older lagers out there in the world. Um, but I wanted to keep it authentic, so I went with introduced a bunch of 6-row barley, which is the barley that they would have been using 100 plus years ago. Uh, I added quite a bit of corn, which if you add something like 6-row with all the protein, you need to throw in something like corn or rice to balance it out. And then I threw in a little bit of English malt as kind of a nod to how this had been an Irish inspired lager for so many years. And then I threw in this little specialty grain. It was a little on the dark side. It almost pushed this beer into amber lager territory. Um, but we did that. It was the third beer I think I brewed at Twin Span. It was one of the beers we opened with in 2020. We called it Liffey back then. That was when I was still under the impression that I was going to do bridge related beer names, which got really challenging really quick. And so there is the Liffey Bridge in Dublin, Ireland, or the Halfpenny Bridge, it's also called. Um, and so we called it Liffey, and we had Liffey and Liffey Light. Uh, Regular Liffey was like 5.4% alcohol, 5.2. And then Liffey Light was the same base beer that we would adjust down to the 4.2 that we're all used to now. Um, it was constantly, the beer name was constantly mispronounced at Beer Fest. It was always Lifey, which I don't blame people. We're an American-owned brewery, and here I am making a reference to a bridge in Ireland. Um, so I figured, I'd missed the mark on that. So at some point, I knew I wanted to rename it to something a little more close to home. Um, we started making Twin Sister at some point, and they weren't super far apart in color. I mean, they were if you put them side by side, but arguably Liffey had become a light amber lager. And so I took out the one ingredient that made it darker. And at that point, I decided to say, let's call it something new. This is a different beer. And so one of my business partners came up with the pun, Lager Dam number 14, named after Lock and Dam number 14. Um, right out of the gate, I came out with the label art to look like the government sign that's down there by the dam. That's why it uses the same font and the same color as the sign. In fact, um, and I like a good pun, so Lager Dam number 14 it was. The recipe, other than the one malt, hadn't changed. Still use the same yeast, same hops, the same bitterness. So this is quite bitter for a American light lager. And there's quite a bit of malt presence and there's quite a bit of hops there, which is why we call it pre-prohibition lager. So I fully believe this or something like it would have been something that would have been served 100 plus years ago. And as you can see, it's plenty light. I'll get in there real close for you. But it's not light light. It's kind of a golden color rather than pale straw or water like some of those beers can get. There's a lot on the nose, and so um, I will tweak the finishing hop on occasion in this beer. Not enough to feel like I need to change it. Just a fun little way of saying, hey, you're drinking this version of this lager. If you can really get in there and find that little hint, the little tweak. Um, And so this one, I sent it off to Craft Beer and Brewing Magazine, which is a magazine I really admire and respect their opinion. We got a 91 out of 100 out of it, which is great. Um, and this beer is one of my favorites. I drink it all the time. It's my go-to. If any of the staff at Twin Span, if you ask them what does Adam like to drink, they're probably going to say this. Um, which is why it pains me to say it's going to go away for a little bit. The thing is, I only have so many taps, and I have had to designate each tap to its own category. So we do have a Lunar Cat tap. We have a um, Twin Sister tap. We have a rotating uh, low alcohol IPA tap. So that helps me keep track of all the variety of beers we have, and I've tried in the past where I let them just go wherever the new releases wanted to go, and that quickly fell apart. And so we have, if we don't have for example, if we don't have a low alcohol IPA to release, that tap sits empty. Uh, and so when I came out with last year, when I came out with Betterdorf as a light lager, um, this is already a light lager. So I let them stay on together for a while. I had Betterdorf go away for a while. Lagerdam's always been on. And um, it got to the point now where Betterdorf is outselling Lagerdam by quite a bit. So if I had an extra tap, maybe Lagerdam would be on all the time. Maybe if this goes away for a minute and people raise enough of a stink that it comes back and stays back forever. I don't know yet. I'm gonna miss it. It's only going to be gone for a little bit. Um, I want to see how things play out when Betterdorf is the only light lager option, I guess. I don't know. I'm still second guessing myself. Um, I, I'm gonna miss this beer an awful lot. So go and get some, try some, and yeah, enjoy it. Let me know what you think. Cheers.